Hello friends, welcome. I'm Commissar Marek and today we are going to be making a video about Season 3 Augustus, specifically about military, pathing, and kill zones and walls. Now this is a follow-up video on the advanced defenses I did before. The reason why I'm making this is that people still struggle with how to use forts or even walls, how to use choke points, because if you don't know that, then you end up doing spawn camping all the time, which, as you might imagine, isn't very efficient, nor is it very fun really, because then you also do get punished by maps that are not linear. Not linear meaning they have more than one invasion point that you need to worry about, and it's not close to each other. So it also costs more levy and workers to cover each and every single one of these invasion points with towers. Now you can still spawn camp, it does work, however, again, more expensive, annoying to deal with, is just a worse experience overall. And so hopefully this is gonna help some people know what do we use to path the enemies around and make them follow basically reliably what we want them to do, because it is possible to do this reliably. However, there are a couple of exceptions that I'm gonna mention towards the end of the video, where sometimes can happen where two men out of like a 50 squad will split off and start hammering the walls, or when part of the army will start attacking the walls. And for that, there are reasons, and you can also prevent it by knowing exactly what the enemy behavior is. So this is gonna be a little bit of a longer one, because I'll have to describe what I have observed as the enemy pattern, and I'm gonna have to show you real examples of the Conquer campaign and maps that can be trivialized basically, or how to properly set up the defenses on these maps specifically. So a last thing that I want to mention is that, oh Marek, aren't you supposed to already not have a channel? Yes, that is correct, but if you've ever worked at a government agency, you know things don't necessarily take the length of time that someone says, and two different people tell you different things. I've been told now the latest information is that on 22nd this month, which is in 12 days from now, I'm gonna be enlisting again. However, up until that point, I still have some time. There is nothing else I can really do. So I still want to make this because it's been on my back burner for a while, and I feel like before I go, this is probably the last kind of piece of the puzzle to maybe when you watch all the videos, then you will have as much possible knowledge as I can transfer like this. So without further ado, let's go ahead and go into Mediolanum. So here we have Mediolanum, Reconquered. This is a very classic map, however this is a test scenario. I just made whatever housing over here so it doesn't die. Next month what's gonna happen, there's gonna be an invasion from right here. Okay, I scheduled it with the Vel event, and we only have one fort. I also will unlock walls and towers and such, and this invasion is unbeatable. It's 50 men strong. However, what will happen if I'm gonna just run this is these people will invade and they will have a target. The target is usually your most valuable building or your food industry. However, they could also target other things like your troops directly. But regardless of what the target is, they'll try to path towards it as fast as possible, as crow flies, but that also means that they will account for pathfinding. If there is a highway, they'll follow the highway. If there is a terrain that allows them to bypass it, they will bypass it. So like, they want to go, let's say here for a block, this invasion will likely take this path. At least most of them will do that. It's possible some of them will follow this way, but if we just go ahead and allow the invasion to happen. By the way, where is the invasion from? You don't know that. The game doesn't allow you to know that, so treat every exposed edge like an invasion point. I've mentioned this before. Normally you do just count every exposed single tile of edge as an invasion point on custom maps. Campaign maps often have stuff like there is this exposed in vanilla, but it's actually not an invasion point on Mediolanum, so make of that what you will. Also in Reconquer, there's never invasion points at the entry or exit, so that's safe. But anything else, fair game. Usually we have a warning, but this is a scheduled invasion, therefore we don't have a warning. They just kind of invade, and so before they do anything, we can deploy our unit over here, because I want them to go here. This would be a perfect kill zone. You know why? Because we have these high grounds and we can put towers and just shred the enemy kind of here, or make them path to this, have a setup with a palisade here, some towers, and kill them in here. We absolutely don't want them to come this way, but before I explain how and why, let's go ahead and observe what they do. So they arrive, they'll start forming up. These are Carthaginians. This is without the patch of advanced military pathing, by the way. This is gonna come into effect later on a future patch of unstable. So yeah, some of them are going this way, some of them are going this way. This would be awful though, because these guys, we would have to basically defend 2 places at once at this point. Not what we want at all. So I'm gonna load the game here. We'll wait until the invasion happens. And then I'm gonna pause the game and I'm gonna go ahead and start building those walls. Now, how do we build walls? No, trees are impassable, but diagonal tiles, like even if, for example, I take this palisade. I have a wall. That's good enough. So if we take this, right, and there was a wall like this, and then there wouldn't be this tree. Is this safe? No, it's not, because they still can see this tile right here as going through, and they will. So be mindful that you want to make sure that you do this. Now we also want to absolutely make sure there is no tile. Normally I would double up my walls. If you have towers or javelins for that matter, if the wall is 3 tiles thick, they cannot shoot through it. If it's a building that's 3 tiles thick, like a fort, like this, they cannot shoot through this. So if you put this on a wall or at a staircase or something, and then you have troops on top, they won't be able to shoot through this thing. It blocks their line of fire. Same as towers. The same is true for thick rocks or trees, okay? But I've noticed that sometimes on high ground, the towers can kind of ignore some of that. I don't know if it's consistent, but it seemed like the towers sometimes can just shoot even if they shouldn't. Regardless, what we want to do is not just make 1 layer, but basically make like 2 layers. This is just to discourage the enemy, and even if they do decide to send like 2 people hammering at this, they won't be able to do anything, which is perfect. Now, what we can also do to secure this is the enemies do have a certain pattern of behavior. So the enemy is gonna arrive into the map. That's the first thing they do. After they arrive onto the map, then they usually try to wait for amount of them to be on the map. But this is not, as far as I know, this is not something they've been told to do. It's just from the nature of how they work. They'll come into it. Sometimes the enemy will just rush your city as well, just a conga line immediately for you. Natives especially do this. Anyway, that's besides the point. They enter the map and then they start seeking the target. If something shoots them or they engage in an enemy, they switch from seeking passage mode towards I'm in combat mode, and every single unit needs to get into that fight as quickly as possible. So they want to reinforce the fight so they don't lose, because enemies on the map will share morale. If there's 2 attacks, one from here and one from here happening from at the same time, if you smash this army, this other army will lose a massive amount of morale. Now this is Augustus. Since you talk about Augustus, there is a morale chain route mechanic, sort of like in Total War, if you play that, where if your army starts losing units, as in full forts getting wiped out, like, you know, you throwing your cavalry away, or a bunch of your challenges getting absolutely trashed by the Golic Axemen or the Elephants, for example, that's gonna mean that the enemies get more morale suddenly, and your units get less morale, to a point where even full units arriving on the battlefield late, like Legionaries, might just run away, because everyone's dead. So, you know, that's a mechanic. It's been smoothened over the years. I remember when I first started streaming it, we had some issues where even sacrificing a single unit would cause you to potentially have a chain route and infinitely keep the enemy morale up. That's no longer the case. However, still consider when to like throw away units. Even throwing a cavalry like this is also why cavalry isn't as good as it like used to be in a way, because yeah, now it's better in actually inflicting some damage, but the main strength of cavalry was before in Julius throwing them into a line quickly to delay the enemy forces before the real people can arrive to deal with the problem. It's no longer what you can do. Well, you can, especially on not very hard difficulty, but you will be penalized for doing that. More so than just, oh, my barracks need to refill those units. So, anyway, that mode I talked about, where enemy shifts from seeking passage mode towards I need to get into battle as soon as possible and even bust through walls passage, because when they seek passage, they will try to ignore walls and they will try to go a direct path like this. So a kill zone, if I want them to come here, which I do, I would not wall this in. Even a gatehouse, I can show this. Again, sorry for this is gonna take a little, you know, a little longer, but I feel like the practical examples are probably the best way to go about this. Let's go ahead and put in a gatehouse, and I'm gonna deploy my units, and I'm gonna save the game here, because we can always adjust this layer to make the experiment go a bit different, right? And so now we've just entombed this, and we want it to come here. Now, problem with this, what's gonna happen is, this gatehouse, the enemies see this as a wall, basically. They don't see this as a passage. So they'll still not come here. Or some of them might, but most of them will still bust through this. At least that's what should happen. And yes, that's indeed what happens. Now notice, stone walls have more HP. But it doesn't matter. Now, because the enemy piles up and they just destroy things so quickly when it's enough of them. Something to note, you see this formation right here, the diamond, it still exists. The devs have patched it out, sort of, but you know what this is? This is the enemies T-posing on you, flexing and asserting dominance, because they see your army and say, oh, you have zero chance to stop us, and we are just gonna absolutely march in. This is their mop-up formation, which is what your troops arrive in if they were helping distant city, by the way. And if you select this, I think, they kind of do this similar thing, which is this is a mop-up formation. Okay, so anyway, that's over. Let's go ahead and load the game, and this time I'm gonna remove the gatehouse over here. Now what we could also do is put a couple of towers here, because something to cover is that the enemy will interrupt their mode of seeking passage into combat if they get attacked by units or javelineers, guards from towers walking on walls, throwing javelins, or watchtowers, I think, or watchtower guards on the roads. The towers from ballista though, they don't do that. So this ballista shooting people, yeah, that's completely fine. They won't like, you know, break their formation and start attacking it. At least they shouldn't. But what could happen is a couple of people could split off from the main group and start attacking this wall. This is a bit inconsistent how it works, but it's reliable in that you can make most of these people actually go this way. So right now they should be in seeking passage mode. What we could do is smoothen out this terrain a little bit. There was a passage before, but I just like to offer a bit wider of an area of approach. And we should see them getting drawn towards this. Amazing. So, you know, it doesn't take rocket science to do this. However, some people struggle with this because the game, it doesn't teach you this, that walling yourself in is like Stronghold if you've played that. It's actually the bad way to play the game. Walling yourself in will result in the enemies busting in from all sides. That's not what you want. You want them to obey and go where you want. Because now, if we had towers here, I could absolutely humiliate these clones. Okay? And we can still kind of do that. If I want to use line cheese or whatever, we could still set it up. But the point is, you know, this was a larger invasion that then can stop, obviously. But I can make them reliably go where I want. And that's the key thing to take away from this. Okay? So, with this, I'm gonna now cover how to use forts to block passages. So this is our Concord Caesarea. I'm gonna use this map because it has some obvious places where to use fort block. Now, why do we use fort block when I can just use walls to do what I described before? Well, if the map is, you know, more cramped, what could happen is, I'm gonna talk about stuff that's not going on right now, so like, use our imagination. If we have an invasion from any of these points, and we have our defenses set up, right? We see the map and we see, oh, I should wall this, and I should wall this, and then we can use this fertile land, yes. That's good. But if it's just a wall, and part of the enemy army is on the map, and it's fighting us right here, and part of the enemy army is still coming in, or from here, then what's gonna happen is they're not gonna be in seeking passage mode, trying to path around the walls, like we saw before. They're gonna switch to, I need to reinforce that battle immediately mode, which means that they will see, clearest passage is through this wall, and they'll start busting it down. Which, you have farms here, car depots, stuff you don't want to lose. Yeah, in order to prevent that, either kill them fast enough, split your army, or, you know, use forts. Forts are indestructible, except, obviously, when earthquake hits them, that can destroy them, or if you were to build a fort like this on the edge of a map and there's an invasion point right here, they will come into the map and smash it, okay? So don't block them in like that. If the enemy doesn't have a valid path, let's say we could make the forts walled in so that this entire area is walled in, completely sealed with trees and forts and cliffs, then the enemy would walk through the forts, okay? So you can't use it to completely seal people off either. However, you can use it for other things. Now, we need to build a supply post first, just because this is how Augustus works, so just put it anywhere right now. This is for the sake of, you know, showing you how to do it. So, the forts can be 3 tiles wide at the fort. Now, the training field itself, that's not impassable. In fact, carvers, ox carts, you know, walkers can use it. It's not really reliable. It's like a staircase, so you don't want to use it unless you have to. But people can absolutely go through it. Now, we need to be mindful of the diagonal tiles. As I said before, if I put the fort like this, then this tile, I'm gonna probably build this just so that you see what I'm talking about. Well, I will mess up the trees. We can rotate the fort, which obviously helps. But if there's a diagonal tile, so I guess like this, I could show you. That would not be safe, because the enemy would walk through this tile right here, right? So I can cancel that. And instead, if we put the fort more into it, then suddenly I like to use my native overlay for minimizing it. So you see, trees are impassable, fort is impassable, the actual 3x3 building here, and so they don't have any way to come through, and they cannot destroy it, so they will have to walk around. Even if they're in the battle mode, they will not be able to go through it, because it's not a passage for them to see. They see it as rocks or cliffs, unless it's their only viable passage, and in which case they will just warp through it. Here, we could do the same thing right there, and this single-handedly makes the enemies have to go this way if they invade from this side. It can be even more useful than this on some other maps, so it really depends what you want, because you can even use several forts chained together to kind of create more of a wall off. But keep in mind, as I said before, those kind of walls are not super reliable because they do block your towers, a line of fire, right? But in this way, we basically made them so that the enemy only has access to our city through here. They can't walk through any of these tiles. And so you can kind of shoestring rotate the forts. If you have 10 of them with Mars Temple especially, you can make the enemy obey what you want like that as well. On some maps this is crucial because you can really give yourself more time by making the enemy go through a longer area if you wall something off. Or you could completely, you know, negate an area as well to merge invasion points like this, where this invasion point now has to come here, which this one has to as well. So effectively this one is safe for you because you don't care. They will all come here to die. In this map, my kill zone would go here, probably. Because I would want to use some of this farmland. Something else, I will not cover lion cheese in this video because we've talked about that separately, but essentially this fourth thing, it could be considered a bit of an exploit because it is definitely unintended by the developers. Augustus dev team knows about it. I've brought it up several times to them. They don't see a thing that could be done to really easily solve it, and at the same time, I feel like there isn't much of a will to solve it, as it's more of an expert thing people use. You know, yes, it is very powerful. As a map maker, I also don't really like it because it trivializes a lot of the challenge if you know what you're doing. However, I accept the existence of this thing, and I felt like more people should know about it because it's what kind of you should be doing on a lot of maps like this where you have 3 tiles passage. Just why not use this? But also, if there was more land, obviously don't cut trees like this when you don't have to, but if there was more land here and I needed another 4 to protect us with that passage, I could still defend it. It's just we would have to do this, right? So, you know, even wider areas can be defended like that. It's not necessary to just have 3 tiles passage like it, but it is essentially a very powerful tool at your disposal, what to use and how to make the enemy do what you want. Now, as the last map, I'm gonna show you Sarmisegetuza as a specific one because it's an example of a complex cramped map which has a lot of possible invasion points, and we really don't want to defend all of them, especially this one up here. This one is made to be annoying because if you put a 4 up here, you see there's a diagonal tile still present. They can still walk through, so you know, you can put it down here and this should work like this, but your troops are gonna be sitting exposed like this to the enemy. They'll immediately get shot. It's not the best. So instead, what we can do, let's realistically take a look at the map, right, and say I can't see myself using this farmland. Yeah, there's farmland here, but one, I don't need it. There is more than enough elsewhere because I see the population goal is not insanely high. This should be enough food for that, plus we will get fish later, but that's whatever. So I don't need this fertile land. It's in fact very unsafe to build here. So either I would have to make this to make that happen, but then this fort is far away from any other invasion point. That's also a concern because it's cramped. Like, these soldiers will take forever to go like here, and this invasion point could run straight into our city, right? So having a fort like this isn't necessarily great, but what we can see here is that there is these trees here. We could use a 4 here to block it off, and yeah, it's also far away, but if we make it rotate this way somehow, we could absolutely make it so the troops can arrive in reasonable time frame. Now, it's a bit harder to do this like that, but there should be a way, and I think I found a way, and it's right here. So we don't want to cut excess trees because that's obviously not good. So you could also combine walls with forts, by the way, which would result in you not having to worry about. Of course, we don't have a supply post. Which would result in you not to have to worry about only using forts for the coverage, but it's not safe because the walls are always susceptible to enemy pathing when they switch to the battle mode, as we talked about before. There's also a thing when there's an invasion going on, you're fighting it, and there's another invasion coming into the map, they will seek immediately battle mode and they'll start running into the city, right? Instead of waiting to form up, they'll just run, and that's unsafe. So we don't want that. Now here, I could put it all the way here, it's tempting to do that, but then this diagonal would be there, so let's just put it like that, and then they shouldn't be able to walk through here. Because this cliff is straight like that. So this diagonal, actually it might be dangerous. I would, in this case, I would be unsure, and so if I'm really, you know, not sure about that, I'll just use some walls here, and this will discourage them enough, hopefully, that they will just follow the kill zone, which is to go here. Now, if I wanted to just make the soldiers, make this absolutely safe, and not care about if my soldiers are pathing along or whatever, because these troops will be able to at least participate in this fight relatively quickly, so like, it's not the worst. We could just put the fort here. And this is absolutely safe, because every single tile of this passage is covered by a fort, forest, or rocks or cliffs. If I wanted to then use this farmland, I still can, as long as we don't remove all the trees. I would usually keep at least one layer, but 2 layers is usually better. And so we could use this always. I'm gonna unleash the walls here. But we need to sacrifice only a small amount of the map for this. Now here, this is where that's a bit more annoying, but we can still block stuff off, I believe. Let's check. Like this, yes. This will do. So we could go ahead and do that. Now I don't have a scheduled invasion here. I could schedule one, make them follow it, but it shouldn't really be necessary because they really cannot go through the forts as long as you don't offer them diagonals. So let's do it this way, right? And then they cannot go here, they cannot go up here, they cannot go this way, they can only go this way. And so we basically made a very dangerous area very predictable this way. Now obviously, now I have 3 forts here and this invasion point is far away. What I would do later, when we get Mars Temple, Grand Temple, I would put Legionary Fort at each entry here. So 1, 2, 3 forts for Legionaries. Legionaries are very good in Augustus, but they need to benefit from... I have to cover the Legionary behavior in this video as well, because I don't have the time to make as many of these as I would want, so we'll have to just kind of pile in everything. Anyway, I would put Legionary Fort at each entry, so that they can delay the enemy better, and they also can fight it all well. So it's not like they'll be dead weight, but they will never reach the other invasion points in time really. So it's more so that every single one, no matter what happens, if I get attacked, I'm not gonna call these Legionaries to this attack point, because I have 10 Mars forts. I'll keep at least 2 back as the reserves to potentially hold off any simultaneous attack, because that's what happens on a map like this. Is Samrasa-Katuza, that's all its identity, is simultaneous attacks and managing that, right? So, normally I would also put walls or watchtowers up here on this cliff to shoot. There's some rocks that are thick, this could prevent tower fire, but as I said, I've observed them still being able to fire from high ground like that. Otherwise you would put it like this. Now when I'm setting up a battle line, I would normally put down a palisade in this fashion. 2 tiles deep, but palisade is good because any amount of it, even if it's like 10 tiles deep, your units and towers can shoot through it, unlike other terrain or buildings. So I would usually set it up like this. It helps to delay the enemy. It's like your ablative armor. It really helps. And so you set up behind it, let them advance into it. But I like to keep at least a tile. It needs to be a tile, but at least like 2 tiles for enemy movement, so they see it as a clear destination. Now let's go ahead and cover the Legionary behavior. So Legionary Fort. Legionary Fort with Academy training has access to the square formation. Infantry, auxiliary infantry has this as well. Why is the square good? Well, in Augustus, if they have line formation, or so double line formation, this makes them throw pila or javelins at the enemy. This is great for extra killing power, mop-up speed, all that. But this gives them projectile resistance of only taking 1 damage from any javelin or arrow, which is ridiculously powerful because they have more than 100 in health, and so it's like 100 projectiles to kill one of these guys in this formation. But it also gives melee bonuses and morale bonus. It's amazing for durability especially, but also there is a combat bonus in general. Now, how to make use of this though, because it's not as straightforward. There are 3 things you need to do in order to make use of this, if you want to benefit from this formation's bonus. Also, I know they cannot throw pila if they're in square. So if you want to benefit from this, right, the Legion needs to be in square formation. That's number 1. Second of all, it needs to be stationary. So if the enemies are advancing into them like this, yes, that works. If they are on the move like this and they get attacked, or if you send them into an enemy wave, that's not gonna work. The bonus is not applied until they stop and not move. Also, they need to face the enemy. If the enemy is approaching from this direction, they are facing the opposite direction, and they are not gonna rotate. Okay, in Season 3 there is no auto-rotation for your troops. You need to tell them, and whichever direction you send them in, that's what they face. So they end up facing this way. If I want them to face this way, I'll send them this way. And they stop, and they look this way now. Okay, got it? So like, if I want to send them somewhere, let's say there's an invasion and we are sending them this way. Alright, let's wait. Highways do speed up troop movement, by the way, but it still doesn't make up for legionaries. So this is that bonus, being stationary and enemies advancing into them. It's kind of goes against, you know, having a unit like this. Now they arrive this, they would not get benefit from this bonus when the enemy slams into them like this. Okay, you would need to then command them forward and then they rotate this way. This is how they benefit from the bonus. Now I hope this helps because it's not clear anywhere how to do this. However, it is definitely important to know that. So, you know, I hope the videos have been helpful. I don't know any other topic right now that we could kind of bowl together with this. However, this has been a long time overdue to make this, because it's again more of an expansion to my military video. If you have any questions, you can let me know. Especially shout out to Raging Gamer, who's been asking for it. Glad to help out. I hope it's been useful. See you guys soon. Bye.